Hello and good day. Chris Principi, publisher of Financial IT, coming to you from one of the most amazing events we get during the year in Europe, Money 2020. Today, we're in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, really one of the best cities to have a great event. And Money 2020 is bringing us hit after hit. It is one of my favorite events of the year. And I'm really pleased to be here with John from Corlytics. Hi, John. How you doing?
Thanks, Chris, for having me.
Great. John, can you tell us a little bit about the company?
Okay, so Corlytics, I would have started it about 12 years ago. It stands for Compliance Risk Analytics, and it's really to look at regulations and how regulations are a risk and how, if the right things happen, we can reduce a firm's risk. So Corlytics is really about making things happen and making the right things happen in firms so that they stay on the right side of the regulator.
You know, regulation is always something I think that strikes a little fear in everyone. And rightly so. We've seen some huge fines that banks have had for not being in line with the regulators. So how do you help them with this challenge?
Well, if you look at what Corlytics does today, we actually do there's four parts really of managing regulations. So there's first of all finding all of the right regulations, making sure that every regulation that's out there that's applicable to one of your businesses is being covered. So no matter what it is, we will guarantee to find it for you. Next, it's about analyzing and interpreting it. So what does it actually mean for your business in terms of changes and so on? Then the third most critical part is execution. So we actually basically work in the implementation in terms of either a policy that has to be changed, control that has to be changed. So anything that impacts the business, we actually have the wherewithal to help firms make that happen. And lastly, we provide an audit trail going back to the regulator to attest or prove that it happens. So right throughout the value chain, we're there helping our clients make sure that they comply at all parts with a regulation.
Well, John, you know, Corlytics is covering the four most important things. And if we start with part number one, it's got to be like a full-time job to try to constantly stay up on all these regulations.
We cover about 2,500 regulators globally. Some of them are electronically quite easy to work with. Some of them are very difficult. But we partner with our clients, and part of our value proposition is if it's relevant to you, we will not miss it. We will find it and we will give it to you.
Well, that's a strong promise that I'm sure your customers really appreciate, you know. And when we get to the part two part, and I know from having worked in some regulations for certain things myself, is that regulations are not always clear. They're not cut and dry. They're open to a number of interpretations a lot of times. How do you see your way through that for your customers?
Well, there's a couple of ways. So, you know, if you look at regulations in certain marketplaces, regulations themselves are changing. So you have a number of rules-based regulators, and that's pretty easy to actually implement because it's rules. But if you look at more and more, there are principles-based regulations or regulations where it's quite high level. And in that case, there's a couple of things to do. One is look at the outcomes. So for example, look at the enforcement. What are regulators expecting when you look at an enforcement? Or you can look at guidance notes. So there's so many places where regulators publish things that are helpful that are generally not in the regulation itself. So it's really important to basically digest and understand all of the surrounding publications that regulators do, because they do tell you in different places what they're looking for.
So that was really interesting for me, and I'm sure a lot of people, because it's not just about following the regulations; it's following this whole world around them, that of the enforcement part. So who's done something wrong and how have they gone about it, as well as everything that they look and say. So that's quite a job, and then you take all of this and you turn it into being able to execute for your customers. Can you tell me how you do that?
Yeah, so it's at the end of the day, it's all about providing actionable insight. So really how we do this is to look at really bigger regulations. Also, we risk rank regulations as well to say, this is a very high risk for your firm for a variety of different reasons. And then if something really has a very high priority, are you making sure that you understand it correctly? Are you then, the regulators sometimes will have guidelines in terms of what they're expecting. And the guidelines will go into the policies that they're expecting a firm to have, or the control strategies that they're expecting a firm to have. And it's really as well, we really provide a unique facility using AI where we have a lot of connectedness. In other words, as soon as a reg change is announced, we know the impact in real time. We know the impact that will mean on a policy. We know the impact that will mean on a process. And we may know the impact that will have on a control strategy. And it's really connecting all of that in real time. And what I've just described is maybe 6 to 9 months in the manual world. And now pretty much in real time, we can give our clients that know-how.
Well, real-time information is always a big benefit, especially in this field, because if they make a mistake, it could be costly. And then with that, you also provide the audit trail, which I think on the surface of it sounds like, convenience and a good function for them. But in reality, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably the most critical part, because the other 3 parts the regulators don't really care for. But that audit trail, that becomes the key to everything that you're doing when the regulators are looking at it. So is it as critical a piece that I think?
Absolutely. So the regulator really is saying, prove to me you've complied, which means prove to me that you've actually seen this, prove to me that you've sent it to the right place, that the right actor has been working on it, prove to me that you made a decision about what impact it has on the firm, then prove to me that that is what's actually in the policy, and prove to me that that's actually in the control. So that's an awful lot of audit trail that is now an expectation of it. This isn't a nice to have anymore. The regulators are demanding this from firms.
Well, really interesting in terms of all that. Here at Money 2020, there's probably a lot of interesting things that you see, some clients, some looking at how things are getting solved, listening to the speakers. What brought you and Corlytics to Money 2020?
Well, I think a couple of things about Money 2020. This really is a great event in that you have so many regulated firms and banks here. You have so many thought leaders from all of the big tech companies as well. What I really like about it is just the exchange of ideas. I always leave this conference, with some great networks, but mainly some really great ideas of things that we should be doing next.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. There's something different about being in the office and thinking ahead, and being in an event like this and hearing where it's going. And where it's going is what I'd like to ask you next about. What do you see as the future, not only for Corlytics, but the industry itself?
Well, I think if you look at the whole industry itself, I think the impact of AI on this business is very exciting in a number of ways. What it is going to do is really 2 things. It's going to speed up everything. So if you look at, a financial services firm and you look at the business, they will say that compliance and risk are functions that slow everything down. That may no longer be the case if everything can be done in real time. In other words, compliance can become an enabler for the business, which is a big theme that I'm hearing. And the second is connectedness. So we're really on a very early part of the curve in terms of a change happening in one place in real time is going to change something else on the right-hand side. And things that would have taken months, 6 to 9 months, are literally going to happen in seconds. And that's really going to, we haven't, I don't think, fully thought through the impact of that, but it's very exciting.
Well, John, real interesting stuff. And the future certainly is something to look ahead for. In the meantime, I want to wish Corlytics and yourself the best success going forward. And thank you very much for spending some time with us here at Financial IT.
It's been a pleasure, Chris. Thank you very much.
Great. Chris Principe, Financial IT.